Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Monday the 16th of September. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Many thanks to Rich Benfield for looking after the briefing last week whilst I was on leave. You've got the pleasure of having me back for the moment. So only a couple of things this morning. Didn't look like it was a terribly exciting cyber weekend. However, there's an article in Bleeping Computer that is pointing out what I think of as a rather novel approach to getting users to share their credentials via a web browser. So this is a piece of malware that locks your browser in kiosk mode and won't unlock it again until you provide your Google credentials. So if you do enter your Google credentials, they're stolen by this particular piece of information stealing malware. So specifically, the malware locks the user's browser on Google's login page with no obvious way to close the window. The malware also blocks escape and F11 keyboard keys, so the usual ways of getting out of or bypassing these sorts of kiosk type modes aren't going to work. The idea is that if you frustrate the user enough, they'll eventually put in their details. Once you do put in the details, the credentials are grabbed by the malware and sent back to the original attacker. So the article is interesting. It does explain in a reasonable detail how the malware works. It is unusual. There are ways to get around this. So if you know your way around Google, this is aimed at some Google Chrome. If you know your way around these things, you'll know that there are other ways to exit kiosk mode. So Escape and F11 are the most well-known ones, but Alt F4, Control Shift Escape, Control Alt Delete, which does the obvious thing on Windows, of course, or Alt Tab may also help. You may need to bring the desktop into the foreground by cycling through open tasks, open apps. You can also, if you're on Windows, use Windows key plus R to get you a command prompt type CMD, and then kill Chrome with a task kill command. Or a force. So there are ways to get around this. If then you believe you have been hit by this particular malware, recommendation is to boot into safe mode and then run a virus scan using an up-to-date anti-malware, antivirus sort of endpoint protection suite. So quite interesting approach. I'm sure will be successful against a good number of people that don't quite understand what's going on. And as the login page or the fake login page looks quite convincingly like Google's, I think there will be a lot of people that will just go, oh, I just need to relog into my Google account. And away they go, having handed over the crown jewels. Also, bear in mind, this sort of attack is made more complex from an attacker's perspective if you use multi-factor authentication. We've said many times that while multi-factor authentication isn't the be-all and end-all of account security, it does make things much more complicated for attackers. So yeah, definitely, if you're not using MFA on your Google account, I would suggest you should. Okay, and another article I came across this morning was from SC Media that talks about how an old Whois domain that could could have been used to issue fraudulent TLS or SSL certificates. So, as it happens, this particular domain was bought by researchers in order to see what happens. And we've spoken about this as a weakness generally in internet security. If you buy old domains, traffic that is, traffic destined for the original owners can be redirected to you if they give up the domain. So it is a problem if you relinquish a DNS name, but you have anything associated with that name that could be to do with authentication or security or whatever it might be. So in this particular case, the researchers bought up whois.mobiregistry.net domain for $20. The owners of the .mobi Whois server had migrated to whois.nit.mobi at some point prior to December last year. Having got hold of the domain, the researchers received about 2.5 million Whois queries from 135,000 unique systems, indicating that there are many organizations that have failed to update their tooling to recognize the new correct .mobi Whois server. Now, does this matter? Well, it kind of does, because when one of the steps in issuing a valid SSL or TLS certificate is to identify the owner of the domain which is being used in the certificate, and that one of the ways of doing that is by using Whois-based ownership verification. So if you've bought somebody else's Whois server, you can issue fraudulent certificates that you can basically get issued certificates for things that you really shouldn't be able to get certificates for. So the particular researchers, Watchtower, have worked with the NCSC here in the UK and the Shadow Server Foundation to ensure that queries to the old domain were redirected to the legitimate Whois server going forward. The concern, I think, from my perspective, is that this is poorly understood. And without action by somebody, will result in potential risk. It is the sort of thing that a determined attacker, especially an attacker with particular knowledge on targeting specific organizations, if they can get hold of this sort of stuff, they can do a lot of damage very easily. So there are apparently numerous .gov and .mil domains communicating with the rogue server, as well as cybersecurity companies, university, as in .edu type domains, domain registrars, and TLS SSL certificate authorities. So it is something to be aware of, something to think about. If you are giving up your domain, what happens next? Okay, well, that's all from me for today. I hope you have a good start to the week, and I'll speak to you all again.